The control room of the interstellar research station Valiant was alive with blaring alarms and frantic voices, a cacophony of urgency that filled the air with tension. Alien engineers with iridescent skin scrambled to manage their panels, and the translucent projection of Captain Thrax's insectoid form loomed over the main console. What is the human doing? Thrax's mandibles clicked in frustration as he gestured to the central screen. The camera feed displayed a lone human, a maintenance technician named Riley, calmly strolling along the external hull of the station without so much as a tether or a visible oxygen tank. He said he'd handle the reactor leak, an ensign explained nervously, his antennae twitching. But he refused the standard safety briefing. He called it a waste of time. Thrax's compound eyes narrowed. A waste of time? Does he not realize the gamma radiation levels out there would disintegrate his physiology within seconds? Or that the hull's electromagnetic fluctuations could destabilize his neural impulses? As if to mock their concerns, Riley casually activated a switch on his wrist device, enveloping his suit in a faint blue glow that shimmered against the deadly void around him. The cameras captured him humming a jaunty tune, completely oblivious to the deadly environment. Thrax whirled toward the human liaison officer, Dr. Samantha Keller. "Explain this," he demanded. "Your species' utter disregard for protocol borders on lunacy?" Keller suppressed a smirk, her tone laced with subtle amusement. "You wanted the reactor fixed, didn't you?" The captain's mandibles clicked furiously, but before he could retort, Riley's voice crackled over the comms. "Okay, so, reactor leak contained. Rerouting power. You'll probably see a little flicker in the gravity stabilizers. No big deal." The station shuddered briefly and then the alarms ceased. One by one the displays shifted to green. "And that," Keller said with a note of pride, "is why we're allowed to skip safety briefings." 2 days later, Riley found himself in the station's mess hall, enjoying a cup of something vaguely resembling coffee. The room was alive with murmurs, most of them directed at him. Alien crew members, their appearances as varied as the stars themselves, stole glances, whispering in tones both awed and incredulous. "You know they think you're insane, right?" Keller said as she joined him. Her tray carried a bowl of gelatinous blue orbs that wriggled unnervingly. Riley grinned. "Insane or impressive? I'll take either." Before Keller could respond, the mess hall's intercom crackled to life. "Attention. Emergency meeting in the main briefing chamber. All senior personnel report immediately." Riley sighed, leaning back in his chair with a playful grin. "Guess the hero's work is never done." The briefing chamber was packed, every seat occupied by representatives of the station's diverse crew. Thrax stood at the front, his insectoid frame rigid with tension. Behind him, a holographic display depicted a swirling mass of red and black, a spatial anomaly moving steadily toward their sector. "This," Thrax began, "is a Class 9 quantum disturbance. It will intersect with the station in 12 hours. Its gravitational distortions will tear us apart unless we find a way to stabilize our orbit." A murmur rippled through the room. Class 9 anomalies were rare, but their destructive potential was the stuff of nightmares. "What's the plan?" Keller asked. "We have deployed remote probes to analyze the anomaly," Thrax replied. "Their data will allow us to calculate a countermeasure. Until then, all non-essential personnel are to remain in secured areas." Riley raised a hand. "What happens if the probes don't send back data in time?" "That is not an option," Thrax said curtly. Riley leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Well, that's reassuring." Hours later, as the station's lights dimmed in preparation for the anomaly's approach, Riley stood in the observation deck. The swirling mass of red and black edged closer, its chaotic tendrils flickering with bursts of energy that danced like malevolent lightning, casting eerie shadows over the station. Keller joined him, her expression uncharacteristically grim. "You're thinking of doing something stupid, aren't you?" "I prefer the term heroic," Riley replied. Keller groaned. "Riley, this isn't a reactor leak. That thing out there defies every law of physics we understand. You can't just MacGyver your way through it." "Watch me," he said with a wink. Before she could stop him, Riley strode out of the room, leaving Keller muttering curses in 3 different languages. The station's control center thrummed with controlled chaos. Engineers shouted over the din, their hands darting across consoles, while scientists frantically interpreted streams of data scrolling past in glowing patterns. Riley entered unnoticed, his mind already racing through possibilities. Spotting an unattended console, he accessed the probe data. The readings were as chaotic as the anomaly itself, but one pattern caught his eye, a fluctuating electromagnetic frequency at the core of the disturbance. That's it, he muttered. Before anyone could question him, Riley grabbed a portable power generator and a box of spare parts from the supply room. In a flurry of motion, he assembled a device that resembled a cross between a satellite dish and a potato cannon. As he worked, Keller stormed into the room. "What the hell are you doing?" "Saving the day," he replied without looking up. "By building whatever that is?" "An electromagnetic resonator," Riley said. "If I can match the anomaly's frequency, I might be able to disrupt its gravitational pull long enough for us to stabilize the station." Keller stared at him, her arms crossing tightly over her chest. A flash of frustration flickered in her eyes as she imagined the countless ways this could go wrong. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is?" she demanded, her voice laced with both exasperation and concern. "Of course," he said with a grin. "That's what makes it fun." Minutes later, Riley stood on the station's exterior once more, his makeshift resonator slung over his shoulder. The swirling anomaly filled the sky, its tendrils of energy reaching out like hungry fingers. "Riley," Keller's voice crackled over the comms, "you're insane." "You're not wrong," he replied. "But if this works, I'll buy you a drink. If this works, I'll buy you a damn bar." Planting his feet firmly on the hull, Riley activated the resonator. A piercing hum filled the air as the device powered up, its dish aligning with the heart of the anomaly. The air around him shimmered with distortion, and the station beneath his boots vibrated with a low, ominous rumble. Tendrils of the anomaly's chaotic energy lashed out, their glow intensifying as if reacting to the resonator's frequency. For a moment, the space between man and anomaly seemed to ripple like liquid glass, threatening to shatter. The station trembled violently, and for a moment, it felt as if everything might collapse. But then the anomaly began to change. Its chaotic swirls slowed, the red and black hues fading into a deep, calming blue. The gravitational pull lessened, and the station's system stabilized. "We did it," Keller shouted. Riley collapsed onto the hull, laughing breathlessly as he gazed up at the calm blue expanse where chaos had once reigned. For a moment, he let the silence wash over him, the weight of what he had just risked sinking in. "Told you it would work," he murmured, a mix of relief and disbelief coloring his tone. Back in the control room, Thrax watched the readings with disbelief. "How?" Keller smirked. "Humans, Captain. We're a little weird, but we get the job done." Thrax sighed. "Remind me never to question your safety protocols again," Thrax muttered, his mandibles twitching with a mix of disbelief and reluctant admiration. The captain's compound eyes lingered on the console displays, as if trying to comprehend how human ingenuity could consistently defy logic, and succeed. Riley's voice crackled over the comms. "So, about that drink?" Laughter filled the control room as the tension finally broke. Thrax's mandibles twitched as he muttered, almost to himself, "I will never understand your kind." Keller glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You don't have to understand us, Captain. You just have to know that we'll find a way even when it seems impossible." Once again, humanity had proven that sometimes rules were made to be bent, or, in Riley's case, completely ignored. The days following the anomaly's dissipation were deceptively calm. The Valiant's control room, once a storm of urgency, now thrummed with a quieter but still palpable undercurrent of unease. For all their celebration, the crew couldn't shake the lingering tension, knowing their survival had hinged on a single audacious gamble, and luck like that didn't last forever. Yet, beneath the surface, unease lingered like a shadow. For all their celebration, the crew knew that their survival had hinged on one man's audacious gamble, and that kind of luck didn't last forever. Riley, however, dismissed the murmurs of doubt with his trademark swagger. As he strolled past alien crew members, some greeted him with hesitant salutes or awkward nods, while others kept their distance, their glances a mix of wariness and reluctant respect. He didn't mind either way. To him, heroes didn't need unanimous approval, just results. Dr. Samantha Keller found him in the engineering bay, tinkering with a disassembled drone. Pieces of its internal circuitry were strewn across the workbench, and Riley was whistling a tuneless melody as he worked. "You know they're still talking about you," she said, leaning against the doorway. Riley smirked without looking up. "Let me guess, half think I'm a genius, half think I'm insane?" "More like 70-30, she replied. "And not in your favor." "Hey, I'll take it," Riley said, snapping a panel into place with a satisfied click. "Besides, you don't get anywhere interesting by playing it safe." Keller sighed, stepping closer. Her arms crossed as she studied him. "You know, one of these days your luck is going to run out," she said, her tone tinged with genuine concern. Riley finally looked up, meeting her gaze with an easy grin. Good thing I don't rely on luck. Before Keller could respond, the station's intercom crackled to life. Attention all personnel. Unidentified object detected on approach vector. All senior staff report to the control room immediately. Riley groaned. Guess the universe isn't done with us yet? The control room was already bustling when Keller and Riley arrived. Captain Thrax stood at the center, his insectoid form tense as he studied the incoming data. The holographic display projected a sleek, elongated vessel slicing through the void. Its hull shimmered with an almost liquid-like texture, rippling hypnotically as it moved with otherworldly precision. The ship exuded a quiet menace, its design unfamiliar and unervingly advanced. What are we looking at? Keller asked, her tone all business. Thrax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. It does not match any known design in the Conclave's database. Its propulsion signature is unique. Unique how? Riley interjected, stepping closer to the display. It appears to be utilizing a form of quantum tunneling, Thrax replied. A technology theorized but never successfully implemented. Riley let out a low whistle. Whoever they are, they've got some serious toys. The vessel slowed as it neared the station, coming to a halt just beyond the outer perimeter. A moment later, a transmission request blinked onto the main console. We're being hailed, an ensign reported, their voice tinged with unease. Thrax hesitated briefly before nodding. Put it through. The display flickered, and the image of an alien filled the screen. Its appearance was striking, tall and humanoid, with skin that shimmered like molten silver and eyes that glowed faintly blue. Its voice, when it spoke, was deep and resonant, each word carefully enunciated. Greetings, crew of the Valiant, it began. I am Commander Soren of the Clyrician Ascendancy. We come in peace, but we require assistance. Keller exchanged a glance with Thrax. Assistance with what? She asked cautiously. Soren's expression was unreadable, but his tone carried a weight that hinted at the gravity of his request. A weapon has been stolen from our vaults. A weapon capable of catastrophic destruction. We have tracked it to this sector, but its precise location eludes us. Riley frowned. And you think it's near our station? The energy signatures suggest as much, Soren replied. If it is not recovered soon, the consequences could be dire. As the Clyrician vessel docked with the Valiant, the crew prepared for an unprecedented collaboration. While Thrax worked to establish protocols with Commander Soren, Keller and Riley reviewed the station's sensor logs, searching for any anomalies that might align with the stolen weapon's energy signature. You think they're telling the truth? Riley asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. Keller shrugged. Their tech checks out and their story doesn't seem fabricated. But I don't like how vague they're being about the weapon. Yeah, catastrophic destruction isn't exactly comforting, Riley said. Keller gave him a sidelong glance. Neither is the fact that you're already thinking about how to handle it, aren't you? Riley grinned. Can't help it. I like a good challenge. Their search yielded little until an ensign flagged an unusual spike in the station's internal systems. It was faint but consistent, emanating from one of the lower maintenance decks. Keller's brow furrowed as she studied the data. That's not normal, she muttered. Could be a glitch, Riley offered, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. Or it could be our weapon, Keller said grimly. The maintenance deck greeted them with an eerie stillness, the hum of the station's systems amplified in the quiet. Shadows stretched unnaturally long under the dim emergency lights, and the air carried an oppressive weight as if holding its breath. What exactly are we looking for? One of the security officers asked, his voice hushed. Something that doesn't belong, Keller replied. Stay alert. They moved cautiously, scanning for any signs of the anomaly. Riley, as always, couldn't resist breaking the tension. You know, if this turns out to be a false alarm, I'm going to start charging for my heroics, he quipped. Keller rolled her eyes. I'll be sure to write you a glowing review. They rounded a corner and stopped abruptly. In the center of the corridor, a small, sleek device hovered a few inches above the floor. Its surface pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow, and the air around it seemed to shimmer. That doesn't look like station tech, Riley said. No, Keller agreed. It doesn't. Before anyone could react, the device emitted a sharp, high-pitched whine. The lights in the corridor flickered, and the security officers raised their weapons instinctively. Step back, Keller ordered. Riley, can you disable it? He studied the device for a moment, his expression serious. Maybe. But if I'm wrong, we might be looking at a very big boom. Keller hesitated, weighing the options. Finally she nodded. Do it. Riley crouched next to the device, his fingers moving deftly over its sleek, glowing surface. Beads of sweat formed on his brow as the high-pitched whine of the device intensified, vibrating through the air like a warning siren. The shimmering aura around the device pulsed erratically, each wave of light seeming to push the tension higher. No pressure, Keller muttered. Riley grinned despite the tension. Pressure's what makes it fun. With a final adjustment, the device emitted a low hum and powered down. The light stabilized and the corridor fell silent once more. Riley exhaled, leaning back on his heels. Well, that was exciting. Keller didn't respond immediately, her eyes fixed on the now inert device. Whatever it was, she knew this was only the beginning. The Valiant's control room thrummed with tension, a palpable energy that crackled with the crew's unspoken fears and expectations. The inert device from the maintenance deck now rested at the center of the holographic table, its faint, otherworldly glow casting eerie shadows across the faces of the senior staff. Commander Soren of the Clyrician Ascendancy stood apart, his shimmering silver form exuding an almost magnetic presence, the faint hum surrounding him lending an air of quiet intensity. His eyes, glowing faintly blue, seemed fixed on the device as if trying to decipher its secrets through sheer force of will. This is definitely the weapon, Keller said, her voice steady, though her fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table, betraying her unease. She gestured to the holographic analysis displayed above the device. It's emitting trace energy signatures consistent with what the Clyricians described. Whatever this thing is, it's potent. Riley, leaning casually against the edge of the table, raised an eyebrow. Potent how? Are we talking city-level destruction, or turn the whole sector into a glowing crater potent? Soren's gaze shifted to Riley, his expression unreadable. Its capabilities are variable. It can be adapted to the scale desired by its user. However, in the wrong hands, it could indeed destroy this entire sector. Captain Thrax's mandibles twitched, a sure sign of his agitation. And you allowed such a device to exist? He demanded, his tone sharp. Soren's voice remained calm, though a hint of defensiveness crept in. The Ascendancy's mandate is to safeguard advanced technology. This weapon was meant to remain secure. Its theft is an unprecedented breach. Keller crossed her arms. Well, now it's on our station and I'd prefer if it didn't blow us all to hell. So what's the plan? Before Soren could answer, the intercom buzzed and an ensign's voice crackled through. Captain, multiple vessels have entered the sector. They're on an intercept course with the station. Thrax's eyes narrowed. Can you identify them? Not yet, sir. Their configurations don't match any Conclave records. Soren's posture stiffened. They are here for the weapon. They must not be allowed to take it. Agreed, Thrax said. Ensign, raise shields and prepare for evasive maneuvers. Alert all crew to defensive stations. As the intercom cut out, Riley straightened, the casual air vanishing from his demeanor. Looks like we've got company. What's the play? Thrax's compound eyes scanned the room. We cannot let this device fall into enemy hands. Keller, you and Soren will work on a way to neutralize it. Riley? He hesitated, clearly weighing the risk. Prepare to defend the station. We'll need your unconventional methods. Riley grinned. You mean heroic improvisation? Thrax's mandibles clicked. Call it what you will. Just make sure it works. The attacking ships sliced through the void in perfect formation, their matte black hulls devouring starlight like living shadows, an ominous prelude to their assault. Their silent advance was shattered by streaks of crimson energy, blazing toward the Valiant. They opened fire the moment they were within range, streaks of crimson energy lashing out at the Valiant's shields. The station shuddered under the assault, its structural integrity already strained from recent events. Riley sprinted through the corridors, issuing rapid commands to the crew as he coordinated defensive efforts. Turrets along the station's exterior swiveled into position, spitting bright volleys of plasma at the attacking ships. Explosions dotted the void, but the enemy vessels were fast, darting through the chaos with unnerving precision. In the control room, Keller and Soren worked frantically over the weapon. The device pulsed ominously as though aware of the violence unfolding around it. Keller's fingers flew across the console as she tried to decode its interface, while Soren manipulated a holographic display with fluid precision. Can we deactivate it? Keller asked, her voice tight with focus. Soren shook his head. Deactivation would take hours we do not have. Our best option is to create a containment field to suppress its energy output. Then let's make it happen, Keller said. Meanwhile, Riley and a squad of engineers worked to keep the station's defenses operational. He directed them with an efficiency that belied his usual carefree demeanor, patching breaches and rerouting power to critical systems. "How are we looking?" he barked over the comms. "Shields are at 30% and dropping," came the reply. "We can't take much more of this." Riley's jaw tightened. "Divert power from non-essential systems. Keep those shields up." The station groaned as another volley of enemy fire struck its hull. Riley gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He needed a way to turn the tide, fast. "Get me a schematic of the enemy ships," he ordered. "If we can't outgun them, maybe we can outthink them." Back in the control room, the atmosphere was electric with urgency. The containment field Keller and Soren were constructing was nearly complete, but the weapon's energy output spiked erratically, sending vibrations through the deck and flickering the overhead lights. "We're running out of time," Keller said, her voice edged with frustration. Soren glanced at her, his expression grim. "We need to anchor the field directly to the station's power core. It's the only way to stabilize it." Keller hesitated. "If we do that and the containment fails, the entire station could go up in flames." "If we do nothing, the weapon will activate," Soren countered. Keller exhaled sharply. "All right. Let's do it." Riley's voice crackled over the comms. "Hey Keller. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. We're down to 15% shields and I'm running out of tricks." "We're working on it," Keller snapped. "Try not to let the station explode before we're done." "No promises," Riley replied. Keller allowed herself the briefest flicker of a smile, a fragile reprieve from the tension, before turning back to the intricate task at hand. Finally, with a few final adjustments, the containment field activated. The weapon's glow dimmed, its energy output stabilizing as the field enveloped it in a shimmering barrier. "It's holding," Soren said, relief evident in his tone. "Good," Keller said. "Now let's hope Riley can hold things together out there." On the station's exterior, Riley's team scrambled to deploy their final line of defense, a series of experimental mines meticulously rigged to detonate in cascading waves, a desperate gambit against the relentless assault. As the enemy ships closed in, he triggered the mines, sending waves of fiery explosions rippling through the void. Two of the attackers were destroyed outright, while the others veered off, their formation broken. "That's what I'm talking about," Riley whooped. But the celebration was short-lived. The largest enemy ship fired a concentrated beam at the Valiant, piercing through the weakened shields and striking the station's hull. Alarms blared as systems failed one by one. "Riley, we've got a breach in Sector 6, a voice called over the comms. "On it," Riley said, already sprinting toward the damage. The battle wasn't over, but Riley knew with unshakable certainty that humanity's true power wasn't in its weapons or tactics. It was in its relentless, unyielding will to defy the impossible. The Valiant's control room was a maelstrom of chaos, smoke billowing from shattered panels and the acrid scent of burning circuits mingling with the sharp crackle of overloaded systems. Every tremor underfoot felt like a countdown to collapse. Smoke and sparks erupted from damaged panels, and the floor shook with each impact from the enemy's relentless assault. Despite the chaos, Captain Thrax remained composed, his compound eyes flicking between screens as he barked orders. "Shields at 10%, an ensign shouted over the din, his voice cracking as the station groaned under another impact, lights flickering ominously around him. "Divert all remaining power to the aft shield generators," Thrax commanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "And prepare the crew for possible evacuation." In the maintenance corridor, Riley sprinted toward the breach in Sector 6. Smoke filled the air, and the faint hiss of escaping oxygen was a constant reminder of the station's vulnerability. His earpiece crackled with Keller's voice. "Riley, how close are you?" "Close enough," he replied, dodging a fallen beam. "Just keep that containment field stable. If this station blows before I get there, I'm haunting you." "Duly noted," Keller said dryly. "But if you're not faster, you'll be haunting us either way." As Riley reached the breach, his eyes narrowed. A gaping hole in the hull revealed the void of space beyond, and the bulkhead's emergency seals were flickering under the strain. He activated his wrist-mounted toolkit, deploying a series of micro-repair drones. Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth, his eyes darting between the flickering emergency seals and the yawning void beyond. The faint hum of the micro-drones was almost drowned out by the groaning hull as each second dragged on, fraught with tension. The tremors beneath his feet grew stronger, and he glanced up to see another blast rock the station. Alarms blared and the lights flickered ominously. In the control room, Keller and Soren monitored the containment field as it held the weapon's energy in check. The shimmering barrier flickered intermittently, a stark reminder of the precarious balance they had achieved. Energy levels are spiking again, Keller said, her voice tight with focus. If the field destabilizes, we're done. The adjustments to the core's output should stabilize it, Soren replied. But any further external damage could compromise the entire system. Keller's gaze shifted to the status display of the station's defenses. Then we need to end this fight now. Outside the station, Riley's mines had forced the attacking ships into disarray, but the largest vessel remained an imposing threat. It loomed ominously, its weapon systems charging for another devastating strike. Keller, I've got an idea, Riley said over the comms, his voice steady despite the chaos. Can you get me control of one of the turrets on the port side? What are you planning? Keller asked, already rerouting controls. Improvisation, Riley replied. Moments later, the turret's controls appeared on Riley's wrist display. He adjusted the targeting manually, locking onto the large ship's charging weapon. The turret's plasma cannons erupted with a deafening roar, unleashing searing bolts of blue energy that streaked through the darkness. The enemy ship's core lit up in a brilliant explosion, shards of molten debris scattering like a fiery constellation. The impact was immediate. The massive vessel shuddered violently as explosions rippled across its hull. Its weapon systems faltered, and its engines flickered before powering down entirely. Cheers erupted over the comms as the remaining enemy ships retreated into the void. The aftermath was a mix of relief and exhaustion. The Valiant's crew worked tirelessly to stabilize the station and assess the damage. Riley collapsed into a chair in the control room, his face smudged with soot but wearing a triumphant grin. You're insane, Keller said, standing over him with her arms crossed. You're welcome, Riley replied, tilting his head back to meet her gaze. Thrax approached, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Your methods are unconventional, but I must admit they yield results. High praise from the captain, Riley said, smirking. Guess I'll take it. Keller shook her head but couldn't hide her smile. Let's just hope we don't need another miracle anytime soon. In the days that followed, the Clyrician Ascendancy retrieved the weapon, securing it within a reinforced vault guarded by fleets. Commander Soren personally thanked the Valiant's crew before departing, his parting words resonating. Your species is truly extraordinary, he said, his voice weighted with admiration. Where others see only the limits of what is possible, you find opportunities and forge paths through sheer audacity and willpower. That adaptability will serve you well, and perhaps save us all. As the Valiant settled back into the quiet rhythm of routine operations, Riley sat in the mess hall, nursing a steaming cup of coffee. His soot-smudged hands trembled slightly, the faint ache in his muscles a lingering testament to the chaos they had overcome. Keller joined him, her tray laden with something gelatinous and vaguely unappetizing. So, what's next for the hero of the day? She asked, settling into the seat across from him. Riley shrugged. Probably fix the stuff I broke during all that heroism. But hey, if another galactic crisis pops up, you know where to find me. Keller laughed. Here's hoping it's a long time before that happens. Riley raised his cup in a mock toast, a faint grin tugging at his lips. To boring days, uneventful shifts, and hopefully no more galaxy-shaking disasters. As the two shared a rare moment of quiet camaraderie, the Valiant drifted through the stars, a testament to humanity's resilience and unyielding spirit.